Okay. All right. Hi there. I am KnightLightnin.
And I'm WhoFartd.
Okay. And together we are
Fart Night Games.
Fart Night Gamers. Exactly. Okay. So today we're going to review the spell rework and 2 new characters that have been added to the game. We're not going to get too much into all of the details, but we're going to open up this discussion and see where we go with it. And first, disclaimer. We can be very offensive. We are a naughty, naughty, naughty channel. And if you get offended easily, if you don't like bad language, end this video now. If you're okay with that stuff, keep going. And I encourage you to check the timestamps in the description because we can have long videos. And if there's a particular topic you want to see discussed, you don't want to watch the whole thing, all those timestamps are in the description.
Exactly. And if the kids are around, earmuffs.
Exactly. Okay, so we have new characters, Anna and Olaf. We basically have a Frozen team with Elsa on top of this. With the is this Disney Sorcerer Arena's first legendary event?
No, because you've got Zerg that's essentially similar to that. You've got Jafar that was a similar release cadence. Okay. You've got a few that are similar, but this is probably, and why am I forgetting? The Incredibles. That are all pretty similar cadence, but I think that this is the first time that they've really kind of committed to creating an OP tier character that needs some quick farming. Other times you either had no chance of getting them a farming, or you've had them for a while and hopefully you already have them unlocked. This is the first kind of cadence of hurry up and farm, as opposed to you have no shot, or you should have already had these guys.
Right. Crystals and or money are required for Elsa, basically, right?
Yes, Elsa is definitely a credit card needed character for most people who do not have the luck to pull that 330 shards for 800 gems. Right.
So we know this is a bit of a cash grab, but this is what games do, and it's still fun to do. And I think I'm going to talk about something today I've looked at a lot of other channels. I appreciate a lot of the other YouTube channels. They've had a lot of good news, breaking down the spells, breaking down the Frozen team. Something I have not heard anybody talk about is the timing of the spells being reworked, which is to enhance the Frozen team. Right? Am I wrong?
It almost seems like to me that they were kind of like, oh, these spells work because, every character is just about equally powerful if you play them right. And then all of a sudden we're like, we're going to bring the killers, and these spells might hurt us from bringing the killers. So we're just going to knock everything down that was working before. So these guys look even more insanely better and whip out your credit cards.
Right. So I think this spell rework is definitely a mixed bag, because it is frustrating for me as a player when I'm having a very competitive, close battle with another player in, say, PvP arena, and then let's say that Dumbo comes along at the level I'm at and not only blinds the entire team, but also knocks down like 70% of their health totals. And I'm like, I was winning a second ago, and it's like right now.
Look, I'd say with some of the spells, I thought it was overkill, but I would say that Dumbo needed to be adjusted. Now, did I think they went too far on Dumbo? Yeah. I think that two randomly assigned blinds would be fair, but just saying one target blind, and let's assume you've got a taunter up, that means you're just blinding your taunter, the opponent's taunter, who's usually the weakest, short of Mordu, usually the weakest hitter of any of them. So, like, I'm really not that upset. And to be honest, I use Bucket of Soldiers, so most of my damage with my taunter is coming from the soldier, not from the taunter. So if they miss, all right, it's really not going to make that much difference. Maybe I'll lose 25% of my total damage when you combine the bucket of soldiers and the taunter, but it's still allowing Aladdin to come through and do his downward slash and knock you for 3,000, or the double headbutt from Shan Yu doing massive damage and potentially knocking out a hero. Like, it's not the game changer it was. And I think they went from this is OP to why do I even bother? And they need to find an in between where, like, oh crap, Dumbo's coming out, but you're not going, I've lost.
Yeah, well, that's what's interesting, because, you know, it's the way in which they reworked that kind of stumps a lot of people. For me, it doesn't stump me, honestly, and I'm going to get into in a few minutes why it doesn't stump me at all. But take Dumbo's example. Dumbo's key component was the damage was great, but also that blind condition. And coming from like a PvE perspective, I was really farming that spell to be competitive I'm in the 3rd tower now. So that blind condition, if I have like a healer or two in my team in the tower, and I can inflict blind and buy myself some time to start healing up my team, you know, maybe with Jasmine throw some forced taunting off on the side or things like that, I can buy myself time to get ready to end that wave and be in a better position to go on to the next level of the tower. But they, like you said, they only did it to the taunter. I almost wonder if I would rather they heavily reduce the damage of the ability, or have it do no damage almost, and reduce the charge time and just inflict the blind condition to everybody. It's like, hey, you're blind. It doesn't do damage. You can't.
Look, the blind was the reason people were using it. They weren't using it for damage. Damage was almost a bonus on top of the blind.
Right. That makes sense. Because, I mean, what they have is the devs have a note here, and anybody can look at this in their news feed in the game. And their dev note is, after careful review of spell effectiveness in battle, we found that a number of them were becoming far too much of a determining factor in a battle's outcome than desired. The intent of spells is to be complementary to a team's strategy and not the runaway star of the show. By making this change, we can better ensure that team strategies can be fully realized with opportunities for counterplay. And there is a lot of truth to that statement.
Well, I agree. Here's my problem. And this comes from when they first nerfed Bucket of Soldiers. So I went back to their customer service if they nerfed Bucket of Soldiers, because I used a significant amount of crystals, because I literally joined the game just as the Toy Story event was ending. And I'm like, wow, this thing's awesome. I need to get it. So I used a significant amount of my crystals. So I went back to customer service and I said, hey, are you going to refund some of the currency that people spent? Because the usage established us thinking of a certain thing, and then you changed the product. And I know a lot of people spent money on Dumbo, for example, and on other things, either in in-game currency, either through crystal or cash. And my biggest issue is that they said flat out, we hold the right to change anything. Now, if I'm going to go to a store and I'm going to buy, let's say, orange juice, okay, and it says no pulp. Now, if they came in my house 2 days later and added pulp, that would be a different product than what I paid for, and that is illegal. That's bait and switch, essentially. But here, they reserve this right without any compensation. That's my biggest issue. When I see dev notes like this, now I'm thinking, for anybody who played a game like Brave Frontier, okay? Brave Frontier, really cool game if you got into it. The Japanese version was probably better than the American, but we won't even get into that. But they did these nerfs, and it took away the integrity of the game, and nobody felt comfortable spending currency, even that they didn't spend money on, but in-game currency, because of these things. So I think the devs still need to address that point, and it's going to potentially hang as a dark cloud over this game if they don't.
Right. So to your point, in-game currency represents for most people, a significant time investment in this game. You know, if you unlocked a character that took you 2 weeks just to unlock, and then factor in gear and tiering up characters, and the equipment and all that, and the amount of like the gold currency you need to level up a character, especially once you get to like past that 30 range, how much it costs, and starring them up. It's such a time investment. They're like, I mean, you know, you need to give people a pretty good faith that the intent of what these things do are basically going to stay the same. Otherwise, you know, like you said, it could be a slippery slope, and if they're drastically making huge changes. And that's the thing that's a little bothersome to me about these spells is the changes are pretty drastic. Now, let's get into why. And before I say that, I just want to give a shout out. There's one YouTube channel I've been watching, Panther Vision. He has the best breakdown of the changes to these spells I have seen so far, and I've watched like 5 or 6 of them, but I like his channel because he's got like really cool visuals. He breaks it down. He's a really nice guy. We're not such nice guys in this channel. He is a kid-friendly channel, though, from what I've seen.
No,
but the timing of these changes coincide with the Frozen characters and Elsa's release. And that is not a coincidence. That is intentional. And if you look at a lot of these abilities, right? Splash Mountain, you know, you don't, what does it say? The final upgrade affects all abilities on the primary opponent. You reduce the magic charge on a random ability on the primary target
basically
opponent.
Just removed what used to be a guaranteed impact to multiple characters. Now they've randomized it. So It's no longer in control, and you're no longer targeting their best characters. It's guaranteed a character, and then you kind of fall into the taunter situation again.
Yeah. One thing that was interesting, when you look at all of these spells, you have to look at the common denominator changes that they made. And something that basically all of these have as common denominators is that ability to just completely eliminate the other side's taunt or prevent them from taunting is in at least half of these changes.
Yes, and let's put it this way. It's a game changer if somebody pops their taunt and you can wipe it out.
Exactly. So what ends up happening? Well, speaking of someone, I fought a Frozen team yesterday, and Elsa does a lot of damage, and there's a lot of great characters. Like Sven does a lot of crazy damage, surprisingly. But to me, what hampered me in my team so much from really just taking out that like really big heavy hitter character is the other team's taunt, and it was Kristoff. Why? Kristoff's kit, he can taunt for 2 turns, which is very unusual in this game. There's only a few characters that can taunt for 2 turns right off the bat, and there's a mechanic built into that team's kit that allows him to refresh that taunt or extend it. So you're looking at 3 full turns of taunting to a tank. So how do you guarantee Frozen characters become the meta? Well, if you could completely prevent other character spells from eliminating taunts, basically by and large, you basically make the Frozen team meta, because we know the best team right now typically is the Kingdom team. And the Kingdom team, even if you change up that last like 5th or 4th character, for the most part, most people don't run a lot of Kingdom teams that have like an aerial ability who can eliminate taunts. So the best current runs of teams right now, really, once the Frozen teams are start up all the way and we're like at comparable levels, because of the spell changes, I don't see how your typical run-of-the-mill Kingdom team can take on a Frozen team, at least with any consistency.
Exactly. And that's what, look, it's pretty clear what their intent is. They would not have made every one of these characters so dependent on each other, because that's what they're going to hide behind to say, like, well, you have to have all of them to make this really work, and that's not 100% true, but they're pretty much saying that. And on top of it, I'd like to point out there's not a lot of details on it, but apparently with Blue Fairy Magic, they flat out put something incorrectly in there, and they gave funds back to certain people who use currency for that.
Wow.
So it's like kind of like a hush hush, but like a big controversy that's brewing, was that they flat out lied on part of it. So I don't have the full details, but I just read a little snippet on Discord on this. So I don't want to jump to conclusions, but I know that there was return and kind of compensation due to this spec.
Interesting. That's very interesting. But to the developer's point, I mean, and look, I'm playing bad cop and good cop at the same time, because I am playing bad cop and saying, yes, you specifically rework these spells right now to make the Frozen team the meta, to incentivize everybody to spend real world money and resources in order to acquire those characters. I personally am free to play, so I'm choosing not to farm those characters at all right now, because my thinking is, even if I say start that process now to unlock Elsa when she comes around next time, which could be a good move, and I'm not saying it's not. My concern is maybe right after or when that happens, they're going to be putting out new characters and a whole new meta, and I'd rather build up my resources for when it next flips around, because this is how these games work. Every few months, the meta completely changes. So do I want to be late on this meta just to have it change? It's like, oh, great, I got Elsa next time around, which is great, and now the meta shifted again, and now I'm kicked out, of everything.
So to your point, I will just add this thing in. I agree with you on that, and that's essentially what I did. But anytime I see 2-for-1 offers, I will take advantage of it. So I unlocked and got to 3-star the Moose Sven, just with the discounted 2-for-1 rates. So I didn't I spent a couple refreshes, but I would have spent that anyway. So it was more just reallocating those funds. And to be honest, I had some extra funds because I played one of those bonus games and got 2,600 additional crystals. Wow. So I figured I'd roll the dice a little bit, and I had a couple times where I got a lot of shards. Now, I know from my club mates that that's not always true. I happened to luck out when I did, but I believe exactly what you said. If I'm not going to go all out and be able to get them to at least 5-star, I'm not going to bother. There's also concern of meta creep along with that. But I do think that, and I have not seen the movies, but from what I was told, these characters only apply to Frozen 1. That there's apparently additional characters in Frozen 2, and I'm assuming Frozen 3, Frozen 4, Frozen 5, for so long as Disney can milk every last dollar out. So I still think that there's potential that these characters may lead to another character or two that was introduced in the second movie. And this is an assumption that there's new characters in the second movie based on what people have told me. But I'm assuming that there's probably an evil Elsa somewhere along the line that's kind of...
Elsa. She has a goatee.
Exactly. Got a dark doppelganger.
That's hilarious.
So I'm assuming they can be used for that. So that's why I'm not quite as concerned about meta creep, in the sense that, yes, there will be other characters, there will be OP, there will be teams, but I think that you will end up needing a good majority of these characters for evil Elsa, random bad guy in episodes 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Right, interesting. I think one thing I am glad about, honestly, is one change of Blue Fairy Magic. Because there was a team, when I first started playing this game, I guess, 3-4 weeks ago, I really
Matt,
like,
before you jump in, can I just ask, am I the only one that thinks that Blue Fairy Magic sounds like a brand of heroin? I'm just saying.
oh my God, that's amazing. That's amazing. Jimi Hendrix wrote a song called Blue Fairy Magic.
I would not put it past it at all. Either that or the Grateful Dead.
Exactly. But one thing when I started this game, looking at the mechanics of the characters, I like the idea of a continuous damage team. You know, with Hades and a bunch of the other characters that apply continuous damage, and also
Trigger
Tower level 2. I just got that, and you get continuous damage. So it's a cool idea to just throw all these debuffs around. But one reason I didn't, actually the main reason I didn't, was because I read the spell and was reading on, you know, different servers that Blue Fairy Magic eliminates your debuffs, but also applies the opposite. So my concern was that, oh, what if I have like 5 continuous damage effects on a character? Someone uses one spell, and now I just gave them healing. Like that's a miserable experience. The fact that they added specifically into Blue Fairy Magic no longer applies a heal over time effect, I do like that change. Because if I'm running a continuous damage team, and I'm sure there's a bunch out there, it's one thing to have your debuffs eliminated, but the fact that you ended up aiding the team with your team concept is pretty miserable. So
Agreed.
I am looking forward to getting Hades one day. He's not on my soon-to-do list. I have a few other priorities on my
list. I will say this. I'm on target for Shan Yu to be done 7-starred in like about a week and a half. Hades is probably my number 2. Mordu is close, so I will give that. But let me just make sure as I say that who's available in that currency area. But I'm pretty sure Hades is probably my next one.
Okay.
Yeah, no. Hades or Mordu. I originally was leaning Mordu for the longest while, but I think Hades is probably the avenue I'm going because I just think he's such a massive damage dealer that even if I get stuck in a meta where there's so many issues, if he's fast and he's going to beat the crap out of you, and that has value in any meta.
Yeah, and you know, thematically, he's really cool. Like when you get him down to that certain point of health, you get that like unbridled rage ability, which is really cool. He gets that red hair, he gains turn meter, and all of his stuff starts doing more damage. So yeah, I like Hades a lot. I'm probably gonna go the route with Merlin because I really want to start playing around with the tactics ability. I love theory crafting in this game. I think there's just so much you can use with that use your head special he has.
Yes.
What I'm probably going to do is because once I get Shan Yu 5-starred, it starts to be a big jump to get to that next star level. So after that, I might take a break, farm Merlin just to unlock him, and then run back to Shan Yu. Because worst comes to worst, I'm probably setting myself back, 2 weeks, like 10 days of farming?
No, I'd call it 2 weeks because realize that, okay, I don't know what rank you're at, but I'm assuming you're top 50.
Yeah, exactly.
So let's just average it out because you might have some good weeks, you might have some bad weeks. Let's call it 1,200 per week. Okay? Right. So just here, let me actually just make sure.
So right up here, right? So yeah, if I could stay in the top.
Okay, let's call it 1,100. Let's be extremely conservative. Let's say this new meta kicks your butt, knocks you down out of the top 50.
Yeah, which it definitely can.
Okay. So Merlin costs what, 8,750 per, right?
Yeah, I believe he's the same cost, but I'll check it out for sure. Here we go.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Merlin, you need 50 to unlock them. Okay.
Pro is all the same cost.
So that means you need 10 of those. Let's divide it by 11,000. All right. No, I take it back. It's 8 days that you'll lose just to unlock him.
Yeah. And look, if I get knocked down further, maybe it'll take me 10 days or 9 days. I mean, I can handle like that 9 or 10 day gap of, not having one character with one extra star. while in the meantime being able to use this new unique character and start playing around with theory crafting. Because unfortunately, when it comes to theory crafting, you really need to have the character and play around with it to see if the mechanics really work as written. Like you said, they had to refund people because a line was very clearly wrong in a statement earlier. So,
I just got to ask one simple question, Matt. Do you not believe gems should ever be held for more than 5 seconds?
I use gems a lot.
Yeah, I kind of guessed with the 103.
Well, I was very close to unlocking Dr. Facilier, and I got frustrated. You know, it's one of those days where you run like 10 auto runs on something. It's like, congratulations, you got 0.
So in other words,
do another 5, and you're like, congratulations, you got another 0, and you're like, all right, screw this.
So in other words, you pulled the Steve Rage farm?
Yeah. Well, again, I'm not spending real money, but you know what it is? I basically just been using the gems exclusively for refreshes up until it costs the next tier. So like the gold ones, right? This costs 50. So certain days I'll use it up until it costs 100, which point I think is too expensive. Some days, like today, right? So I used the 100 refreshes up until the point it costs 200. Then I'm like, all right, then it's too expensive. My logic is this. I'm trying to unlock characters or gear, get the equipment, right? And I'm trying to get that done as fast as possible. You know, like last week when we last shot this video, I was at level 37. I was at the highest silver rank in PvP Arena. And a week later, here I am towards the end of level 40, and I just hit that gold tier level 3 in PvP Arena, which I'm scared to hit, honestly. I'm afraid to get my butt kicked in that tier. But, you know, I'm progressing through the game, and every time you level up, you get energy. So by farming and leveling up faster, you get more energy to farm and level up again. So until I hit a certain level where, you know, that strategy might change a little bit, because maybe the cost-benefit analysis will change a bit, I'm going to keep going with this. Because, look, every time you level up, even if you don't level up your characters, your spells get stronger, and your energy hoard can be bigger. So
now, here's the one thing that I find frustrating. And to your point, I agree with everything you're saying. Because cash is so scarce, you level up far, far faster than you have enough cash early on in the game to even keep your characters at your current level. So, for example, I'm level 44, and I think other than Aladdin, every character is still at like 40, 41, because I'm trying to save up because I'm about to 7-star 2 characters in the next 2 weeks. So, like, I need 2 million in cash.
Exactly. Like, a great example. I haven't leveled up Ariel in a few levels. And why? Because to bring her just from 37 to 40 is
82,000, yeah.
Yeah, it's like a fifth to sixth of my currency that I have. And that's one character. So I definitely take your point there. By the way, isn't it kind of, I feel like everybody needs a dummy character. And by that I mean, you know, you have in your dailies, you have to level up.
Level up 1 level and throw one cheap piece of gear.
Exactly. Like my one person, it's been 2 weeks. You know, Merrida's a cool character. So I feel like, oh, if I have to level up somebody, I'll level up her. But I know I'm not using her right away in any of my team squads. So I'm just like, you know, once a day, just level up Merrida. Just once, 1 level, you know. And, you know, if anybody isn't sure, you bring it up and then you scroll this down.
Yes. So I have a deep philosophical question for you, Matt. And if anybody wants to comment on this, please feel free to include in the comment section. Which one of Merrida and the Fox Archer is Hawkeye and which one is Green Arrow?
The Fox Archer? You mean Robin Hood?
Yeah, that dude. Obviously, I like technical terms.
Which is Hawkeye?
Which is Hawkeye, which is Green Arrow?
You know what? That entirely depends. I think you'd have to first resolve of Hawkeye and Green Arrow, who do you consider the better archer? And that has to go to Robin Hood. Merrida's an amazing archer, but there's one part in Robin Hood in the movie that makes him so preposterous. He is about to loose an arrow in the archery contest. Now, Merrida's amazing. She can split somebody else's arrow with her arrow. That was Robin Hood like 50 years ago, okay? The Robin Hood in Disney is a Robin Hood who is about to loose the arrow in that competition. He gets tripped. And his arrow shoots in the air.
And it flips.
No. He takes his other arrow, shoots the arrow that he fired to get the original arrow to hit through the target.
So I'm just going to say
Robin Hood is like playing pool, like with pool cues with arrows.
I'm just going to say my theory is that to that point, Robin Hood is more Green Arrow because Green Arrow at one point almost killed Superman with his arrow. And the only reason he didn't was Batman pulled it out of his chest in The Dark Knight Returns.
Oh, well, okay.
So I consider that also as impossible. So I kind of lean towards Green Arrow and Robin Hood and Merrida being Hawkeye.
Interesting. So something I've noticed, just to give some theory crafters out there some advice with beating Frozen teams that I was thinking about the other day. You have your typical meta team that you run, and that's great, and you crush other teams. But in these kinds of games, with a Frozen kind of team, what you have to make is a counter team, a team that may not always make sense in any other context except to beat this one particular team. And for any theory crafters out there, what I encourage them to look at are characters like this one. Where is she? I'm going to find her.
You're looking for Madam Mim?
I'm looking for Madam Mim. Yeah, exactly.
You passed her.
Yep, that's Frozen.
You got to go where you were, two tiers down from there. Two down from Frozen. Yeah, right there, Madam Mim. You just passed. Yeah, there you go.
Passed it again? Jesus.
There you are. You're on it.
Oh, I'm on it. That's why my scrolling finger was on that side. Okay. So Madam Mim is definitely worth looking at. And I think it's this for two reasons. That last line of that special ability inflicts helpful immunity for one turn on target opponent. Frozen seems to work because Kristoff taunts, and they just reworked all the spells in the game so that spells really can't get rid of taunts. So inflicting helpful immunity means he can't gain taunt if he doesn't already
exactly.
have it.
Yep.
So if you could find a way to pull off, and there's other characters I'm sure that do this, but if you can inflict helpful immunity on a tank that is not taunting, find a way to shut them down. So yeah, now you can go hammer at Elsa, take her out so the damage dealer's gone, and now you can start bleeding that team down. That is a real serious thing to look at. And I think there's another ability that she has I was looking at. So I'm thinking Madam Mim or a similar kind of character might be able to really be at least part of the formula that has a chance in slowing down that team. And she has the ability, too, to spread that around. So she inflicts helpful immunity, and you can find a way to give her bonus turn meter, have her go again. You might be able to say,
also, the one thing to point out with Madam Mim that a lot of people don't realize, now she is not a tank, but she takes pretty darn close to tank damage when you really boost her up in at 6-star, 7-star area. So she becomes a lot more useful if you want to go without a tank. She doesn't taunt, but people want to get rid of her early because, to be honest, a lot of people haven't been paying attention to her.
Yeah.
So people are kind of like, oh, crap. There has to be a reason that this guy has this random character that I never see before. Let's knock her out.
Yeah.
So it forces them to account for it. And the second that Madam Mim does something that kind of screws them up, they're just going to be like, okay, we need to go after this character. So now you're free to keep your more glass cannon characters. So if you want to have a Mickey, you want to have a Jack Sparrow, you want to have some of these less
tanky characters.
Frozone. Not Frozone. Well, what's the dude who's in second row, the third over?
Oh, Syndrome.
Syndrome, thank you. It was a Jerome. And those characters that can do a lot of different things that other ones don't do or combine with it, now you've got a way to get around that.
Yeah. So I think there's a lot. People are going to have to dig deep into the mechanics of other characters, and like I said, I'm just choosing not to farm the frozen characters right now. So I'd almost rather farm like one or two potential counter characters to that team to potentially keep me in the top of Sorcerer's Tournament and PvP Arena. And because if everybody else ends up running frozen characters a month from now, you might, if you're not going to farm those characters, you have to really look into, okay, if I come, because you don't want to come across a frozen team and say, just throw your hands up in the air, yep, I automatically lose. You want to have something that even 35% of the time allows you to win, at least gives you a fighting chance. So,
and let's be honest on one simple thing. One thing you don't know about KnightLightnin is there is nothing that he enjoys more than theory crafting.
That's true.
So if he can find a way or spend a good amount of time thinking of ways to counter the meta, there's nothing that makes him happier in a game, even more than I'd argue winning. It's more the fact that he's come up with an angle that nobody else saw. So that's the one thing about listening to this channel is take what he does, and if you see something that he doesn't or I don't, you've got a basis to kind of find that final step. And the best thing about games like this is taking theory crafting and working as a group.
Right.
And I've found some of the best people out there for Star Wars, and Matt and Knight kind of applied this in the past, is take what they do and then build and build and build, because it might not impact this meta, but it's going to impact the next one. And Exactly. That's the fun thing with these games, and I think that's one of the things that you seem to derive the most joy from.
Yeah, and look, it's a lot of fun. You know, the games like this are a puzzle, and you know, and then you can find puzzles within puzzles and do things. You know, too, it makes things interesting because look, you'll see it every Reddit, page. You'll see it in every Discord page. One thing people can't stand about the idea of there being a meta, or at least a meta that's so far above and beyond everything else, is that it gets boring. There's no team diversity. We play games to be entertained. And yeah, even if I'm, not as high up in the ranks as other people, if I'm having a good time running characters that like nobody else is running, like I'll be honest, my favorite times I enjoy this game are when I'm in like PvP arena and I come across the team, I'm like, wow, that's your comp? That is, I don't even know what those characters do. I don't even know who to attack first. I'm so fascinated by some of the compositions and the mixing and matching of teams, which is why another reason I can't stand teams like a Frozen team is, and this happened with Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes, and that's one of the reasons why I went away from it.
A bit?
Even if you're not a theory crafter necessarily, you still want to customize this game to yourself. So because you say, oh, that's my favorite Disney character, I would like to be able to play that character from time to time and not get completely annihilated. My issue with the Frozen squad is they're a squad. They are 5 characters that, inside of what, 2 weeks, all came out at the exact same time.
Okay, I'd like to add in just one thing. My biggest issue with Frozen. Yeah, my biggest issue with Frozen. The movie is terrible. I tried watching a few minutes of it. Oh man, it's like Disney used to be here in the 90s. Like you go like Lion King, Aladdin, Toy Story, and you're like, wow, this is amazing. And you're like Frozen, and you're like expecting it here, and it makes you miss Finding Nemo too.
I made a commitment last week to watch Frozen before this event, because I tried watching it maybe a number of years ago. I actually did it yesterday. So I have those exact same criticisms you do, and I know specifically, because one thing to say something's bad, but I know why it's not as good as it could be. And look, before I get into that, I really see the appeal. Like, if I was a 5-year-old girl watching Frozen, this movie is pretty legit, for the most part.
Okay, so I'd like to jump in on that one statement, though.
Okay.
Because if I'm looking at the perspective of I'm a young girl and I see a cool female character, I'm sorry, Jasmine was awesome.
Yes.
Pocahontas was awesome. Belle was awesome. And I'm just going off of just recent thinking of movies that would not have been the way they are without those powerful female characters. So that's my issue with it.
First time I've ever heard this statement, Pocahontas is awesome. I don't think I've heard that before.
Okay, let me also say this.
Nala was awesome from The Lion King.
Yes, exactly. Those are the three that just popped into my head of characters that were essential to the movies while still maintaining likability. It's not like it's some witch in Hocus Pocus, which was a Disney movie, if I remember right.
Yes. If they bring the Sanderson sisters into this game, I might have to farm them right away. And also Billy Banks, that like undead guy that cut his mouth open and heard him talk. And so, you play the virgin character. You know, true story. I'm in the theater. I don't know when Hocus Pocus come out. Like
it
96. I don't.
We were at the tail end of elementary school, I want to say.
So I'm watching Frozen. I'm sitting in the movie theater next to my mom and dad, watching Hocus Pocus, and they're talking about virgin over and over and over again. And I distinctly remember going over to my mom. I said, "Mom, what's a virgin?" in the middle of the movie, and she whispers over to me and she says, "Oh, it's a very stupid person." Swear to God.
I could picture that. I could picture that exact scenario.
Like, I want to tell you, but I'm not going to tell you. So I'm just, and look, maybe, I don't know if there's an element of truth to that. There could be, but I don't know. At a certain age, but I don't know. We won't go there.
Well, let's put it in context. When this movie came out, maybe at the oldest, we were 12, probably somewhere between 10 or 11.
Yeah.
So that makes it even fun.
That sounds right. So, but yeah, Frozen has the appeal of this. It is, in essence, an X-Man movie. She's got powers. She's basically Iceman. It's like if Elsa was an X-Man that never had a Professor Xavier happen.
Okay, I'm just going to throw in also the fact that Elsa is one of the least interesting X-Men in the history of the comic books, but they continue to hide behind, oh, he's Omega level.
Well, what's interesting? I was listening to somebody talk about the history of the making of Frozen, and one reason it may be a little discombobulated is apparently it's based on a classic story I never heard of called the Ice Queen. Where I don't know if their sisters were in the original version, but this woman goes off with these powers and everything she touches becomes ice. Essentially, she freezes over the land. She was not supposed to be a heroine character. in the initial production. She was not looked at as favorable. She's really supposed to be like the villain of the character.
Wait, so you're telling me evil Elsa is possible?
Yeah, I mean, look, Idina Menzel comes along, and they make that one song that I never liked the main Frozen song before, the Let It Go thing, but I will say, watching it in context of the movie, I did enjoy it. I did enjoy that scene.
Okay, and let's also add in the fact, anyone who's ever seen a Broadway show in recent history or has any idea who Idina Menzel is, you knew the second you get her to sing a song, it's going to sound phenomenal.
Correct. I remember seeing Wicked. I think she was the witch.
Yes.
She was playing it. It was like, wow, like the whole theater like shook essentially. But apparently what happened was that song like came out and it at least went into production, and they're like, this is such a good song and it's sympathetic. We don't think we can have this character just be evil. So they actually rewrote a lot of it to kind of make Elsa fit into a more heroine kind of character. And look, my main criticism of the movie, if the pacing was different, I think you could cut out 20 minutes of that movie easily, because it is a very long movie.
I'd argue I've probably seen half an hour of that movie, and I could have summed it up in 5 minutes. It's like, oh, the moose is cool. That's all I really need to know.
Yeah, I watched Cubs fan Han talk about this song of when he's singing about reindeers, and he said it's like his favorite part of the whole movie. And I was like, once I saw that part, I'm like, wow, Cubs is completely correct. It's only like 20 seconds, but it's one of the best 20 seconds of the movie. But I think that, honestly,
the one thing I'm not clear on, is he a moose? Is he a reindeer? What is he?
He's I don't know. Is a moose a reindeer? Can we get confirmation?
Okay, and we also got to clarify, is it a magical reindeer? Can he fly? Let's clarify that too.
Well, you know what's cool about Frozen is that there's so many fan theories. Like, people think Kristoff is Santa Claus. And because he's got the reindeer and it's like starting to get, affluence with he sells ice for like a living in the beginning, and he's in this like frozen area.
Okay, was I the only person who didn't want to see Vanilla Ice pop up in that movie at the beginning?
Ice Baby?
Tell me that would not have been an epic Disney song.
It would have. But honestly,
revive the whole thing, make Suge Knight a ton of money.
Yeah. The main thing that hurts Frozen as a movie is almost every other song other than the two we just mentioned, because – and look, you see this on Broadway in musicals too. You see people – it's almost like a template musical song where if I were just like, I don't know, go out of nowhere and say, who farted? We're on a cast with KnightLightnin. Let's talk about it. And you do that for 3 minutes and your ears will explode. But you have like 5 of those songs that really are completely forgettable that you're forced to watch in the movie, as opposed, like, what's a bad Aladdin song? There isn't one.
Oh, there isn't.
And also, songs advance plot is another key that you need to have in musicals. Like, as an example, in Aladdin, the intro, it starts with the guy, the Arabian Nights song. He's telling us, he's setting the stage. And when Aladdin does his bit, when he starts, what's happening? It's not like Frozen where you're just, Anna standing outside of a door singing about whatever. Here's Aladdin running through a bazaar market, evading swords, almost getting killed, stealing apples and all this crazy stuff. The songs advance the plot and tell you more and demonstrate more. But when you have a song just to have a song, I mean, that's why I think the Let It Go song works, is because you can feel the emotion, and there's a character arc evolving there, which you don't really get in any other song throughout the entire movie. But that said, Frozen 2 is supposed to be better. To your point, there might be a Frozen 3, 4, and 5. the revenge of Kristoff's revenge.
Exactly. Come on.
You know,
as Pirates of the Caribbean showed us, just because you die doesn't mean you can't come back as an undead zombie on another ship.
Yeah, maybe Sven is in Davy Jones' locker.
Exactly. And I'd like to also point out one thing to your songs, and I wanted to make sure I was right on this. One of my issues with Disney movies today, and I will get off this tangent, but it's tied to your songs, they no longer have these epic composers. So Aladdin, we were talking about Aladdin's music. Aladdin was Alan Menken. Like, you might not know him, but he's one of the few, if I remember right, and it might be wrong, he's one of the few living EGOTs left, which means you won an Emmy, a Grammy, an Oscar, and a Tony, which there's only like 13, 14 people alive who have gotten that. So there was just a level of Disney, like, you composed Disney stuff. When you say Elton John, for like, if you look to the 90s and early 2000s, Elton John was probably the least accomplished composer of a Disney soundtrack. That says something.
Well, you know what? That's a good point. That's crazy. That's pretty crazy. Wow. That's a really good point.
So that's one thing. And I know we completely got off tangent with that, but that's one thing that's bothered me for a long while.
Look, sometimes conversations go into strange places, but that's what's fun about, you know, having these. So
I think we might need a timestamp of Mike's random rant on Disney music.
That's definitely going to be on there for sure.
Okay.
But you know what? I will say this: it's what makes it memorable, because music is wonderful in that it gives you. Music has to have emotion in it in order to transfer that to the audience. And if it's like just template nonsense, regardless of the style of music it is, you know, it makes whatever you're watching so forgettable.
And also maybe it's nostalgia, but I just look at, when I think Disney music, I think Little Mermaid, I think Beauty and the Beast.
Right.
I think Aladdin. And it just seems to be a gradual, I don't want to say degradation, but it's almost apt in the level of music and the complexity of it. Don't get me wrong, that Frozen song, definitely memorable. But it's not that complex opus that, like, you think in Little Mermaid, or you think of like Beauty and the Beast was Be Prepared, right? Which one was Be Prepared from? But it's just kind of like in a whole new world. Like, anybody who grew up in the 90s knows that, or knows a certain song parody of it. And like, you hear that, you instantly know, like, wow, that was a great soundtrack. And Frozen is kind of like, wow, that's a great song, that's catchy, but my kids sing it. If I'm got the soundtrack and I know I'm going to sound old as I say this on CD, I'm only going to play one song instead of the entire thing.
Well, that's it. It's like when you buy an album, right? You might buy it for that one song or two, but is it worth listening beyond that one song or two? You know, whoever bought the Frozen album, you know, how many people can name me like 2 to 3 Frozen songs?
Exactly.
As opposed to, you know, many other types of older school Disney movies. And look,
to me,
a lot of Disney movies, there was a gap of time where Disney did not do very well. It's like the dark era. It was that era wherein Robin Hood came out, but like the next best movie of Disney made, at least animated in those days, was like Aristocrats. And there's like, it just falls off bad. There are just gaps of time where, you know, maybe the good composers, you know, got agita and just couldn't keep going. I don't know.
To me, Disney movies have now become closer to Right Said Fred, and as opposed to, in the 90s, they were Pink Floyd recording Dark Side of the Moon.
Yeah, exactly. Well, you know what? Like, I think Lion King was the last, like, truly amazing, at least when we were around, really watching these as younger people, really amazing overall album. It's like every single song is good. Every single song works. Every single song moves the plot forward to a certain extent. And even, like, the worst song, which, I mean, you know, it's still pretty good comparatively. But then you get into the next era, which is Pocahontas came out, and that let a lot of people down. There was like one good song in Pocahontas.
Okay, I will say this: "Colors of the Wind" was an epic song. Like, it kind of overshadowed the fact that there weren't a great song.
Well, what's a Pocahontas song not named "Colors of the Wind"? Like, I have no idea.
Oh, I'm sure. Wait. Oh, was Pocahontas the one? No, it was Tarzan was the one that Phil Collins did the soundtrack for, right?
Maybe. You know, I didn't see Tarzan, so I can't speak to it.
Okay, I'm trying to remember. It's been so long, but I just remember
Lion King. That was like a huge gap in time.
Yeah, I just remember the songs that were tied to Phil Collins because, let's be honest, I love Phil Collins. He can do no wrong. Genesis, solo, doesn't matter. And I remember the Disney stuff, and I'm pretty sure it was Tarzan. And even though it didn't produce that, like, memorable, like, one song, it was the last time I remember from start to finish the movie soundtrack, I'm like, that was cool. Now, I'm also biased. Phil Collins, awesome. But other than that, that's the last one I remember where I just go like, all right, I'd listen to this in my car.
Right. Yeah. I remember Princess of the Frog. Dr. Facilier has a really good song, like Friends on the Other Side, but
never seen it, so I will clarify that.
I don't remember anything about the rest of that movie except that one part. Anyway, getting back and moving on, we started this discussion today talking about nerfing. So into our fake news section of our discussion, we have to look at this new spell, the Nerf gun.
So I am excited about this because I think this will make all the people who are ahead of me in the arena to rage quit this game eventually. So I think this is my way to get to number one.
Exactly. So let's talk about the first level of the spell.
Actually, Matt, can you make that a little smaller? I can't quite see everything.
The first level of the spell is target sorcerer or / player. So this is the first spell in the game that actually targets your other actual opponent. Target sorcerer / player gains the Nerf condition. So Mike, talk to me about this Nerf condition.
Okay, so this Nerf condition is one that is, this is only level 1. It takes a random amount of gems away from target player when they gain the Nerf condition. Now, that it can range from what we're hearing anywhere between 800 to 2,000, which equates to about the amount you spend to get a spell to the next level.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, we figured this, since the devs are going into nerfing all these spells, it's kind of ironic that there's now a Nerf gun spell that just nerfs the opponent. And I think this is what the devs should have done in place of nerfing all the spells, is just open this spell, everybody automatically gets access to it, and then over time they can level up. So everybody, instead of the devs coming down and nerfing us, if they just give us the means to keep nerfing each other, I mean, that's really where that could go. So I think it'd be cool if you just keep hitting people with this Nerf condition.
So Matt, I have to say, I'm really curious. Level 2, you've got to extrapolate on this because I didn't hear too much about this, but I think this has the potential to be game changing.
Okay, so level 2 is inflict message board complaint madness and quote butt hurt. So Mike, you know a little bit about butt hurt from what I understand.
I
from the
don't,
20s, I believe.
I really don't love the segue into that, but I will say this. As someone who definitely was inflicted with butthurt during Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes, whenever they would do something that makes me very angry, usually there's a direct correlation between getting butthurt and message board complaint madness. As someone who has done that before, all this does is, with taking away some abilities that you spent a lot of money on, you will now get indignant on the fact that the devs are screwing you over, and it's time to make a change, possibly fire those who are associated with this change, because they clearly don't know as much as the average player.
Right, and the thing is with message board complaint madness is we're not just talking, club conversation. We're talking about Discord,
Reddit,
all the good stuff. And the first part of this spell, the Nerf gun, as you mentioned, sacrifices crystals. What this does, message board complaint madness really does, is sacrifice your real life time. So when you are targeted by the Nerf gun, you not only steal resources from the player in game, but you're targeting that player behind the screen in real life and stealing their time. On their deathbed, if not for message board complaint madness, they might have lasted another day or two.
So I also speculate, I heard that there were some concerns that they might need to nerf the Nerf gun. So they may reduce the message board complaint madness for a limited duration until you go into Reddit and post at least one complaint under your username.
Now, when you nerf the Nerf, is that a buff?
I would say if two wrongs make a right, two nerfs make an unnerf. So let's call that a buff.
Yeah, I guess it's all about whether it's multiplication or addition.
Exactly. I prefer the squaring theory when dealing with debuffs or buffs.
This is Nerf squared. I see. Okay.
Yes.
So, Mike, talk to me about level 3 of this Nerf gun.
So level 3 is going to make you miss level 1, because level 3 not only takes away, no longer takes away a random amount between 800 and 2,000 gems. It will now take away 5,000 gems. If you don't have those 5,000, it will put you in negatives of your gems and will also take away all your coin currency. Right.
That's pretty brutal. Nerf level 2. Like you said, you're going to miss Nerf level 1.
Exactly.
Whoever you've been farming that last week, useless.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's pretty brutal. The Nerf the Nerf gun has no allies.
Basically, level 3 is about as pleasant as getting kicked in the groin.
And that's what Nerf level 2 is. You walk up and just kick the other player right in the ball.
Okay, now, level 2 is kind of like a soft tap. Level 3, you're on the ground feeling like you're going to throw up.
Oh, my God.
So
now, level 4
yes,
is where things get really interesting, because it's one thing to nerf the other sorcerer player and nerf their characters, steal their gems, steal time from real life, kick them in the balls. Nerf level 4, you just can't take it anymore. The target rage quits the game and starts playing Marvel Strike Force.
So I think that it's if there was a name for this level, it's fuck this shit, I've had enough. And this really is when you have to realize that this spell is so OP that you have to play an opposing game.
Which will do the same exact things to you. So this is not like a reprieve. You're moving into the Nerf whirlpool and getting sucked home. Actually, you know what you could call this? It is the Nerf event horizon. Once you pass level 4 of Nerf, you cannot possibly. There is nothing that could escape nerfing, including the speed of light.
I would also call this spell level 4. Dennis finally gets guildmates.
Oh my God, that's so bad. So bad. All right, so we have our Nerf gun. It'd be fun to use this, actually. And I'll tell you, knowing what we have in store for people next week is really going to be cool because the concept is not just really fun for us to play around with. It's something that might actually make its way into the game. And
let's put it this way: if you were 14, between 14 and 16 when Who Framed Roger Rabbit came out, you dreamed of this.
There you go. There you go. All right, WhoFartd, you got anything else to add?
I think we said it all.
Yes, we did, and even more so.
Yes.
All right, my friend, enjoy your day.
Have a good one.